Welcome
Hey.
to what should be a very interesting conversation today. I am Dan Faber of Dan Faber Vocal Studio, and I have here with me Devasha Opperman, who is AKA the Singing Diva.
Hi.
Uh, Devasha is joining us from South Africa, and she just reached out to me recently to suggest we have a conversation and sort of without knowing anything really about each other, we're going to chat a little bit about our vocal studios and see what some of the similarities and differences are, and maybe learn a thing or two that will help each other out. About voice teaching, I'm in Los Angeles. Like I said, she's in South Africa, and we're just going to see where everything goes here. But Devasha, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? Talk to the people.
Hi, everyone. So I am the singing diva. I am pretty much new to YouTube. Well, I've been on there for about 6 months, but I have a long history in vocal training, just teaching and training for many, many years ago. Started out in church, in the church worship team, and I've also had professional vocal training myself. But I think most of my experience was from there, just helping to teach and train people in the worship team, and the rest is history.
That's beautiful. And I love the name The Singing Diva. How did you come up with that?
Well, my full name is Divasha, my first name. So just like, a nickname, people would call me Diva. And when I was thinking of a name for the YouTube channel, I thought it would be perfect to be the singing diva, like how a diva sings. So that's what I went for.
I love that. I mean, that's literally perfect. Like I also went with
Yeah.
my name, but my name just like straight up is Dan Faber. So I was like, there's nothing creative there, so let's go with it. But Divasha being called Diva as your nickname and then being the singing diva is literally
Just
so
went with
perfect.
it.
I love that.
And
I
how
love that.
about
Like I said,
you? So for you, it was just your name, going with your name for your channel.
yeah, a lot of my colleagues and other voice teachers that I know and respect in the Broadway community are all just, Chelsea Wilson Vocal Studio, Dean Magazine or Vocal Studio. And so those were two of my personal teachers. And so I thought, sure, let's go with Dan Faber Vocal Studio and not
Love
overthink
it.
it. Um,
Yeah.
but I myself also went undergrad for my undergraduate bachelor's degree was in vocal music education from the University of Delaware. And
Oh,
at the
wow.
time, I was thinking that I would be going more into the choral world. Lots of choir experience in my life and thought I was going to be a choir conductor. But
Okay.
then during college, I did a lot of musical theater and was encouraged to try being a performer in New York City. And so I moved to New York and ended up having about a 10-year career as a musical theater performer in New York and around the world. And
So
then I was
exciting.
doing a show. It was quite interesting for sure. I, had a lot of awesome opportunities to sing and dance and act kind of all over America and across and really all around the world. I've not been to South Africa, unfortunately, but I've been to a lot of other places and other continents. Um, and the life of a musical theater singer is often you do a gig and then you get back to New York and then you try to do some side job to hustle and grind and make rent. Um, and so I ended up, I was getting a little tired of the random side jobs that I was cycling through. And I was doing a show with another voice teacher and she was teaching voice lessons in between rehearsals and after shows and on our off days. And I was like, wait, that is so much more up my alley. I'm a trained voice teacher. Why am I not teaching voice? So I started my own studio soon thereafter. And then and I was doing just all in-person lessons. Then the pandemic hit and everything switched to being online. And then I started building an online voice studio essentially. And that's led me to today, where now I exclusively teach online, save for a couple of friends that might pop over for a voice lesson. But in terms of the general public, I just teach online voice lessons now, YouTube, TikTok, and then just do the one-on-one lessons, usually over Zoom or Skype.
Awesome. So our stories are a bit similar in that because with me, like I also just naturally found that I was gifted in the teaching aspect of as well of the singing, just helping people out at church. And I'm like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this teaching stuff. So let me go ahead and then I started offering lessons. And the same thing, I'd have students coming over to my home where I would teach from home, and eventually just got so busy where, like, from the morning till the evening, sometimes working till like 9 p.m. at night, I'd be busy and exhausted with students. And when the pandemic hit, same thing, ended up having to take the online route. There was like no other option. And then
Hmm.
from there, just, eventually branched out and like thinking, you know what, I can reach a bigger audience with YouTube. So here we are
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really interesting, especially during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I was almost exclusively working with aspiring Broadway singers, people that were either had done Broadway or big national tours, or were just, trying to build their own careers in the industry. And they were almost exclusively coming for coachings before a big auditions, as opposed to just taking general voice lessons. And so once the pandemic came, there was, Broadway shut down, all theater shut down. I mean, everything shut down. And so
Yeah.
there were no auditions because there were no shows, and
Yeah.
so there were no coachings for these auditions. So my whole client base just went away. And so in order to build it back up, I had to just start going online, and then was been able to sort of find this crazy amazing outreach of musical theater, primarily musical theater, lots of other genres, but primarily musical theater singers, yeah, around the world, and it's been really phenomenal since.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, I've only done like local performances. I haven't went, anywhere like around the world performing, but I found my niche was more in the teaching. So it's amazing that you've also got a lot of the performance aspect as well. Being a vocal coach, you've also went out and actually experienced. I think it's important for us to get that feeling of being on stage, feeling the nerves, and then we have more to, give back to our students, because I feel like I can actually identify with that and help them with stuff that's actually worked for me to like help me get over nerves and stuff, being in front of a crowd.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the first question that we were going to ask, which we already kind of started getting into a little bit, is just how you started
Yeah.
as a voice teacher, and what inspired you to share your expertise on YouTube. And let's specify to YouTube as well, because obviously we're going to be here on YouTube, and obviously I mentioned a couple other things, but talk to me a little bit more about how you actually got started and what brought you here.
Well, like I said, just early experience in church. Like, obviously, I loved singing as a little girl, and I knew I was gifted in that. But as I went on, like in years, always being, called to the front in the worship team, ending up helping singers and, other people, like training them with their vocals at church, I realized that, I'm gifted not just in the singing, but also with the teaching. Let me go ahead and, try and reach a broader audience. I think with the pandemic, everything kind of just worked out, everything kind of just flowed in one to the other, because that's how I ended up going online, and then eventually looking at a platform like YouTube where I could, just reach a bigger audience instead of working with people locally. That's pretty much it, and I'm just loving it so far. Also, that interaction and getting to be on YouTube, there's so much of potential there.
That's so great. That's so great.
Yeah. And how about you?
Well, yeah. So, adding on to everything I've already said, when I started getting into voice in general, I mean, really, it kind of started in high school and in the choral world, being a section leader, running those little, sectional outbreaks where it's like get the guys together and do some student teaching there. And like I said, I went undergrad for vocal music ed and conducting and choir and all that. And so I really loved, and also singing so much church music as well. I loved the educational part of things. And then when I obviously got into musical theater, found that I was more advanced in my musical knowledge and less advanced in my ability to dance. And so I was good at dancing, but not like them. And so I knew there was definitely a gap, and I knew there was definitely a way that I could help people, get better at their own musicality, especially those who I found to be, you know, much better singers than I. I mean, it's really um, one thing that I really took away was that, at the time I found when I did my first professional musical theater contract, I found that singers took a lot longer to learn their music than my fellow music education majors. I was like, God, these guys really can't learn a song very quickly at all. This is terrible. But where they were then able to take that song way beyond the final product of my peers in the vocal music education realm. They understood how to take a song and really turn it into something so much more beautiful and emotional and powerful than my peers. And so I knew that there was more to discover in that realm of musical theater as opposed to just sort of choral singing, and that there was something that I was noticing about there, something along the way, something about the process, not just the product but the process
Yeah.
itself, that had to be so fascinating and interesting to want to be a part of that, to help people really find their way to that next level of actual performance.
Yeah, yeah. I was saying I'm just amazed that, even up till now, I've been doing vocals for so many years, but it never ceases to amaze me. I'm always learning something new. Like there's always more to learn about vocals, and even for myself, just applying that and then teaching it to my students. So that's really interesting.